can actually be cut into several pieces. They just take this and they plant it, and they think they're good to go. So you can actually turn this stem into several pieces just by chopping it and leaving some leaves. And now those pieces.
So where should you cut them?
Well, you want to leave it about 1.5 inches, 2 inches when you're using stem plants, just because it leaves you some room to get some of the stem into the substrate, and you still have some leaves exposed to grow. And I mean, you just turn one stem into 4 just by chopping it. And most stem plants will grow pretty much anywhere. You can just toss them in some water, float them, do whatever. I found the easiest substrate to plant in is sand, although sand isn't nutrient, so it's inert. So you need to add root tabs, or you need to add a Miracle-Gro potting mix or something under the sand to give nutrients to the plants. But yeah, I love sand. Another way I found that's really awesome and easy to propagate plants is like taking ferns, and you can just attach them to a rock and just plop it right into your tank. And it'll start growing like that, and then you'll start seeing little pieces of the rhizome coming off, and you can actually trim it. This isn't a good example, but you can actually trim it off. Take that rhizome, so you still have this initial one, you pop that back into the tank, take this one, tie it to another rock, and plop that one right next to you, and now you have 2 separate rhizomes grown. And that'll fill in pretty quickly.
And does it matter what kind of rock you use?
I like to use lava rock. Thank you, Stephen. I like to use lava rock just because it's really cheap. You can find it at any hardware store, even some like Walmart, things like that.
And it makes it easy for the roots to
stick onto it. The roots will actually start adhering to the lava rock. And it's porous, so it has high CC as well. So if you're dosing ferts into the water column, the plants will be able to get it.
So what are you tying the plants to? Fishing line or?
You can use cotton thread, you can use fishing line. I prefer cotton just because it's really easy to work with. And over time it'll start deteriorating. By then the roots will already have attached and the cotton will deteriorate and come off. So then you just have roots attached to a rock. Nice plant. And it's really easy to scape with this, especially if you have like hardwood and like mountain scapes in your tank. You can just kind of stick the rocks where you need them and the plants will grow from there. So you don't have to worry about trying to tie stuff onto wood. You can just kind of plop everything in. Works out really well. So here's AR Mini. It's a mid-ground red plant, really awesome. And the way it grows is it stays really low and sends out side shoots. And to trim it, you just want to clip off the side shoots. And now you got 2 plants. And this one, you can actually trim this longer stem out. Plant that, now you got 3. So that's, I mean,
so exponentially you get more plants.
Yeah, and that's how you propagate. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. Instead of buying more plants to fill out space, trim your plants and they grow. So here's Blixa. It's a very common mid-ground plant as well. And it's a little harder to tell because when it's planted, it looks like it's one piece. But if you pull it out, you can see that you're actually getting 2 stems here. And what I like to do is I don't even need to trim it. You just yank them apart and you have 2 rooted pieces. Replant that, you're good to go.
Do you give them names?
Yeah, I do. All the time. And then with Blixa, some people like to trim off the roots. You just clip them wherever you want because they're going to regrow anyway. Sometimes what I like to do is just fold them, make a little knot, and that's how you're going to plant it. Pop it in, give it a little jiggle, pull out. There you go. Oh, here's some mess. Tropica. Very cool plant. It's also known as Starogine repens. It sends off these little side shoots as well, very similar to AR Mini. All you do is clip, and then find another one, clip. Same idea. Got extra pieces, replant those, you're good to go. Let's see what else I got in here. This is something interesting that a lot of people don't know. Window fern. I don't know how many of you guys have window fern in your tank. You can actually yank off a leaf and float it, and you'll get these nice little plantlets growing off the leaf that you yanked. And that's a really easy way to propagate window fern. I think it also works with Java fern and narrow leaf fern and things like that. And you can actually take this and tie it to a rock or tie it to some wood, and plantlets will grow off of that and attach to the wood or the rock. And yeah, really easy way to propagate that. Let's see what else. Oh, I don't know why I grabbed this big piece. So sometimes you get plants that look like this. It happens. Green rotala, narrow, grows like this because it likes to grow really bushy and you can't really tell, especially after you've been trimming it for a long time and you're trying to get this nice bush. If you yank out the piece, it's going to have all these segments. They're just kind of growing crazy. You got this like stem that's growing all these weird side shoots and things off of. And you can do the same thing. You can trim off the side shoots. Or, if you want to be lazy, you grab it, you find a nice middle point. You'd cut it off. I'm saying if you want to be lazy, you can do this. Pop it in. And then it'll be floating, because picture water in this tank. And then you can just trim off excess. And all that'll grow out, and it'll be really dense and bushy. Because that's usually how you want to aquascape with this particular plant. You don't want individual stems, you want it to grow really thick and dense. And another thing with this plant is it likes to send off those roots at the different leaf nodes. And when it grows really bushy like that, it hides all those roots. A lot of people that first start out, they're like, why is my plant sending out all these weird looking roots? Do I trim them? What do I do? You trim the plant, let it grow bushy. The leaves will grow up over it and cover all the roots. The roots will be on the inside. So let's see what else I got here. Trimming up rhizomes. So very beautiful piece of trident. And you can see the way trident grows. It has one initial rhizome where all the leaf nodes are growing out of. Sometimes people don't know how to deal with this because they get it in, they don't know what they're new, they don't know any better. What you'd want to do is actually make these into smaller pieces because that also promotes growth. And you want to trim it, you want to leave at least 3 or 4 leaves on each part, or you can just go by length, trim one piece off. Oh, let's find another piece here. And it gets tricky with this plant because it likes to knot. So there you go. You got extra pieces. And I found the best thing to do is tie those to rocks, throw them in your tank and they'll grow out. When you get enough growth and you have enough portions and you use it in whatever scape you want to use it in. Here's where it gets interesting. The biggest problem I've seen with people that just start out is they look at those tanks with the nice carpets and they have no idea how to go about planting a carpet. It can be really tricky, especially if you're buying pots of things. Things come in pots with this wool and they don't know that they have to remove it. They don't know how to separate the portions properly to plant plugs. So I have a pad of UG here. And looking at it right now, you're just going, what do I do, dude? Like, how do I trim that without killing the leaves? And, you know, it's really difficult. What I like to do is you flip it upside down, plop it in the water, and now you have roots exposed. You can actually trim through the roots and separate it, and you still have the leaves fully intact, ready to grow. And you're just making little plugs. And the way you want to plant them is you want to space it about 1 inch away from the front, wherever you want to start. Then you take another plug, and you want to make sure that you keep the roots on the bottom and the leaves up top, especially with UG because it likes to creep up and go through things. So you got 1 inch away from the glass, and I want to move 1 inch over. And you just want to follow this pattern for whatever space you want to cover. And you can even go smaller with the plugs. I tend to go a little bit larger because I'm lazy. But you can go smaller with the plugs.
So what happens when you cut yourself with a piece of scissors or poke yourself in the eye with tweezers?
You go to the hospital, Stephen.
I hate when that happens.
So you can just make smaller plugs. And typically the smaller your plugs are, the faster they're going to fill in, just because you can plant more with each portion. But yeah, that's the general idea. So you're going 1 inch apart, 1 inch apart, and you're just kind of making a grid. That's how you want to plant carpet plants. Anubias, same thing as the trident. It grows an initial rhizome. Typically, you don't really need to worry about the roots. I left these ones attached, but you can trim them off if you want to. It's going to inhibit growth a little bit, but for the most part, you should be good. You want to leave Anubias at least 1/2 inch. You don't want to trim it really, really short unless there's a lot of leaves and a lot of roots. So trim it up. You got 2. Trim off the roots if you want to. Attach that to a rock and it'll grow.
So is it okay to trim Anubias in a shrimp tank?
It's not okay to trim Anubias in a shrimp tank. Thank you, Stevie. Because Anubias actually releases toxins into the water that are harmful to shrimps.
Wow.
I don't really.
I think it's, yeah.
Oh no.
But it's somewhat speculation. I don't know. You might just be crazy. So here's what I've done with Anubias. It grows really lovely on rock. Fills in beautifully. And from here as well, you can trim it off. The central segment, whoa. So this one was attached with cotton, but it's gone now. Apparently, I thought it was still on there. But there was cotton holding on this middle piece. It's gone now. But to propagate this, trim off, and you want to yank it off the rock. Same thing as everything else. You're trimming the rhizome. And you want to leave enough to grow back, especially if you have it nicely attached to your rock. You don't want to trim off too much. So that is good to go. And now I have more portions to attach to other rocks, or I can sell these portions. And that is about it.
So do you have to be so aggressive when you try to remove the Anubias from the rock, or can you kind of like convince it and console it to just get away from the plant?
If you ask nicely, it'll remove itself.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I know, because I have some and I was afraid to touch it.
Yeah.
Like,
Use your best judgment. If you feel like you're harming the plant, ease up. You know, ask questions. Figure out the right way to do it. You definitely don't want to damage plants, especially Anubias non petite. It's a fairly expensive plant, so you really don't want to damage it. But most of the plants that I've dealt with today here are really hardy plants. You know, we're not dealing with areos and things like that that are really, really finicky. And you know, when you're splitting an areo, you want to make sure your hands are perfectly clean, or you wear gloves. You don't want to get your oils from your fingers on the plant. And you got to use a razor blade or a surgical scalpel to split it. So this is just really easy stuff. It's entry-level things, and it's some stuff that people don't commonly know, especially coming in new to the hobby. Do we have any questions?
What other plants release toxins in the water?
Crips and Anubias, and I think Busus do too.
I don't have any of that.
That's good.
Just a suggestion for the hybrid that you have, the first one. I got them from
The AR Mini?
The hybrids, the red one.
Oh yeah, the Ludwigia Red Hybrid.
Yeah. That one, like every 5 leaves, I think you can give it cut, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, that's kind of my general rule.
I just kind of go, if I know that there's going to be at least 3 or 4 segments of leaves after I plant it, you're good to go. But you can leave only 2 and it'll still grow. But it's going to take longer.
They kind of pop up.
Yeah. It starts splitting and yeah, it grows really dense. Yeah. Oh, and if you can find them, these are like the best scissors ever. They're surgical snips. And yeah, these are my favorite scissors. I don't use the big crazy long ones. I use these little ones. And straight tongs are the best ever. Cool.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.